So first of all, we're going to go into the measures section. So you can see it's part of the blue section on the work plan template. All of the priority indicators are in red font, you can see over here. And the way to get into them is to press the Add button. So you go into Add and you will be able to get into the detailed view. So we really encourage all organizations to complete all of the priority indicators. The priority indicators are predefined and they cannot be modified. So you'll notice in the top box here that you cannot change any of these components of a priority indicator. Now these are all based on operational definitions that have been developed and are inside the indicator technical specifications document. So this will give you much more detail about the data and where these administrative databases pull the information from. So let's go back to this work plan and just to also let you know that there are mandatory indicators and you would see that on the work plan as having yellow outlines around it. So each of these indicators has areas to input data, particularly these self-reported ones. You're able to enter the data directly into the software, and so you would be just putting in what your own system has been collecting, and so you can put in your numbers. You have another option for collecting baseline, and this is typically used when there's a new indicator. With things like the palliative care indicator, we know that this is a fairly new indicator, so we're quite pleased to see when people will put in some early data so that we can get an understanding of what this issue looks like. So you also will see that there's a direction for improvement, which is very helpful because particularly with new indicators, you may not be familiar with the direction of improvement. So in this one, higher would be better. There's also a statement about the current performance and where it comes from. So you'll see the reference to the technical specifications. There's also an option to use suppression. And this means that you would use this for the privacy of your patients. So if, for example, that you tested your palliative care processes on less than 5 patients and the denominator was less than 30, this indicator would show X on the work plan, and that's just for the protection of your particular patients. You'll also see that we have an absolute target, and that is just simply the difference between moving from the one current performance to where you aspire to be. And we certainly encourage you to use aspirational targets. It can be difficult, particularly with new indicators or topics, to have targets. So we know that sometimes that it's fairly hypothetical. You will see that there is an appendix in here that will provide some information on how to set targets. This Appendix A. And so there's many approaches to setting targets, such as finding out if there are established benchmarks. You may see benchmarks inside the Hover Help if they're available. Is the indicator new? Are there any provincial averages, medians, percentiles? Is there a best achieved elsewhere? You could look at similar organizations and see how they've been doing. You could also look at theoretical best, and we also are seeing the influence of service accountability agreements on some indicators that are also on the accountability agreements. For hospitals only, there is a section on executive compensation, and it's a simple yes, no. That is a requirement, again, just for the hospitals. Your target justification is an opportunity to describe any influence on your target. So you have some enablers or barriers that you want to articulate. It also gives you an opportunity, if you are using a staged approach, you may have a certain target for this year, but that you're planning for maybe 2 or 3 consecutive years. Our next section is about collaboration, and you will see here it's looking at partnerships and working. This is on specific indicators, so you can see that it's right inside this measure section. You have an opportunity to add any organization that is on this list. All of the organizations that are alphabetically listed here are organizations that submit a quality improvement plan. If you do not think that they are submitting a quality improvement plan, you can free text in the information. So maybe you're working with the community support service. You could just type that in and add them as collaborators. And will show up on your collaborators to the specific indicator, and that will become visible on their quality improvement plan as well. Also, you can see here that it is an opportunity. You could write in, if you're working on Ontario Health Team, it's an opportunity to demonstrate that you are working in partnerships, and also just that cross-sector collaboration. All right, so when you have completed this section, you just save and close. If you've ever deciding not to work on an indicator, it's always safest to clear all fields, but you will not be able to delete any of the priority indicators. And that's just because, again, we want you to be working on these indicators. And if you have chosen to not work on these indicators, there will be a subsequent video that will describe that process. So I'll just save and close so that we can have that information. Just want to emphasize here that the numbers that you come up with in the work plan, this current performance, will be visible on the progress report. So these data are linked, and the current performance in the work plan is the same as the current performance in the progress report. So if we quickly go to the progress report, I'm just going to demonstrate that. So I have to look quickly for the palliative care indicator, which here is number 4. You will see that 0.60 is the value. And because it's a proportion, we wouldn't expect that this number would ever be over 1. But again, if you had another person maybe working on this and they had a different value, and they put maybe that there was 200 people that had the documented assessment, then this number, this 0.40, will move forward into the work plan. So you do need to make sure that it is consistent, and hopefully you won't get any surprises by having values that you weren't expecting.